What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Mike Gadowski YouTube channel, and today we are going to be building the motor. So I already got some things laid out here, and I'm gonna kind of go through what I'm gonna do today, and then I'm going to do it. So enjoy. So right here I've got everything laid out. First things first is I'm going to be installing my cam bearings. These are a nice coated set of cam bearings from Dart. They're specifically made to fit the Dart SHP block. Here's the part number. But they're nice. They have a really nice coated inner diameter, and then the outer diameter's got nice chamfers on the edges to make the installation easy. Now, one thing about cam bearings that not a lot of people know about is they have this oil groove in the center and 2 holes. Well, actually, this one happens to have 3. Oh, I guess they're all like that. Huh, well, these Dart blocks have 3. Most of them only have 2. So, when it comes to cam bearings, they're really simple. The Dart SHP happens to have all the same size, but most blocks will be smaller in the rear and get larger as the block goes on. So your cam bearing in your typical small block Chevy back here will be smaller than the front bearing. Now that makes it really easy when you're putting them in, because if the rear bearing falls right in, or if the front bearing falls right in, sorry, then you know that it's the wrong size. And a lot of bearing manufacturers will actually mark them on the box and tell you which ones go in which spot. But in this case, they're all the same size, so we don't have to worry about that. But what we do have to worry about is these oil holes. Now this groove in the center ensures that the bearing will feed the cam at all times, but there's an optimum location for the first hole. Now on a Dart block, this oiling hole goes right to the camshaft, and before it gets to the camshaft, it comes straight from the main oil galley, which is right here. So oil shoots up here, you can kind of see it in the casting of the block, to your main, because it prioritizes oil to the mains and then shoots oil to the camshaft. Now, that being said, you don't want the oil hole for the cam bearing to be right on the oil hole in the block. You actually want it to be crooked. You want it to hit the bearing first, spread out around this groove, and then use the oil holes to enter the bearing. If you don't do that, oil is going to directly shoot right on the bottom of the cam, and you'll have starvation issues on the top of the bearing. So that's just something to keep in mind. So what I do, and what a lot of other engine builders do, is they actually put the first hole at a 1 o'clock position. So think of this as a clock. You know, you have your 12 o'clock here, your 6 o'clock here, 3 and 10, I believe. But anyway, so 12 o'clock's here. So 1 o'clock is gonna be right about where this dot is. That's a Sharpie mark that I put on there. So what I wanna do is make sure that this hole right here lines up with that mark when I go to knock it in. Of course, I'm gonna be starting in the rear and working my way forward, but that's just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. So I'm gonna get to it. I'm not going to film it just because it takes some time, but I will show you the tool that you use. This is the cam bearing installer. You hit the end of it with a hammer here. You use this cone to locate the tool in the block, like so, to center it. And that slides onto this shaft right here. Then you find the size bushing driver that you need, or bearing driver that you need for your cam bearings, which is not this one, it's the next size down, is this guy. You put him on there, and then you install this end right here, and that expands this part of the tool. So I'm gonna set it up and show you. All right, so at this point in the video, I ran into some issues. It's the next day, by the way, that's why I'm wearing different clothes. But I ran into some issues fitting the crank, and I really just needed to put the camera down and focus on what I was doing to make sure I didn't make any mistakes. So I fit the crank and I fit the camshaft. I set the M-play. Unfortunately, I didn't film any of it. My plan was to film every step, and I got in the groove, and I really just needed to get it done because I just got in the groove. So What I ended up doing was I set the cam end play at 5 thousandths, which is pretty typical. And then I made sure that my crank bearing clearances were 2 to 2.5 thousandths, and that ensures that I have enough oil clearance on the bearings and the crank journals. But so after I got all that done, I ended up taking a break, and me and my fiance Jazz came back to the shop later that day, and we knocked out pretty much the rest of the short block. So I'm gonna put that in a time lapse now. So now my block is a short block, and I'm really excited. I hope you guys are as pumped as I am, because I'm like, this thing's gonna make some crazy power, so I'm really pumped about it. I really hope that you guys are too. So at this point, I want to thank you guys for watching. You know what to do: like, comment, subscribe, and we're making stuff happen finally.